Today on All Things 80s, we're looking at Christmas annuals from Christmas past. Welcome back to All Things 80s. Now, Christmas annuals were as much a part of Christmas as turkey, the tree, and mistletoe. Now, I'm not really aware if Christmas annuals were a thing in America, but however, where I grew up in the UK, Christmas time was the time for getting a lot of gifts, obviously, and a particularly good gift you would receive back then would be a Christmas annual. Now, what is a Christmas annual? Basically, it's a book. In many cases, they are compendiums of comic books that were released weekly back in the 80s. In some cases, they were just special one-offs, but the Christmas annual was a vital part of Christmas as a kid growing up in the 80s. Now, as you know, I had to go back to the UK a few months back, clear out my parents' house, and in doing so, I found all my old annuals. Now, given that I only have so much space here in America, I only brought back a few examples. The rest I gave to charity so that hopefully some other child can enjoy these books. So anyway, we're going to talk about what was a Christmas annual. So like I said, I've got a selection here. We'll just go through these at random. So this one is called the Star Wars Annual. Now, I remember getting this, and I'm not entirely sure what year it was, but given that Luke appears to be in his Bespin fatigues, we have to assume this annual came out after The Empire Strikes Back. And from what I can see, I mean, like I said, this is me looking at these for the first time in decades. These are, it says Stan Lee presents Star Wars, the greatest space fantasy of all. And this appears to be 2 or 3 comic books presented in one sort of compendium. I don't know if you can see that, but and on the spine it does say Marvel/Grand Dream. So this was a Marvel issue. It's actually quite dusty still. So this was the Star Wars annual. So I'm assuming this must have been, what, 81, 82, something like that. And I honestly don't remember anything about this. In fact, I don't know if you can see that. That to me looks like Mr. Scott from the Starship Enterprise. But this was not a crossover. So this annual was just basically 3 comic books presented in one hardback Christmas annual. That's a good one. Next up, we're looking at the Transformers annual. This one must have been 84, I think. Wow, it's very stiff. Ooh. Let me see. Cannot see anything here. It's actually quite a nice book, believe it or not. Wow. Oh, so this is the answer page. So I guess this was not so much, well, it does have some comics, but it also has some puzzles to play. There are actually written word stories, there are comic book stories, quizzes and whatnot. Yeah, this is pretty nice. You see the sort of the comic book format here. And then as we turn the pages, you had to match the Transformer with his appropriate name. So this was a nice annual because it gave you a mixture of written word stories, comic book stories, and of course, competitions or quizzes and things. Now, these pages are stuck together, and this is not what you would expect from a child's book. Okay, it's just with age. I have an old bookmark here. This one is, if you can see to read, please do remember those who cannot. The Royal Institute for the Blind. Oh, so this was like a charity bookmark. But you see, we had, this was the classic word search. So yeah, this was a great annual. This was everything an annual should be. So it's a combination of written word, comic book, and quizzes and things. This was a great one. Ah, this one I like. Adam and the Ants, 1983. Now, yes, Adam and the Ants was the first ever band I was really into. And I did get the Prince Charming cassette for Christmas. But it was before 83. Don't quote me on this, but I suspect that by 1983, Adam Ant was no longer sort of wearing the makeup and things. This might have been the sort of what, Goody Two Shoes. What's the other stuff he did? Out with the Ants. Apollo 9, all that kind of stuff? Maybe. So this was the 83 annual, and this one is just, oh, once again we have like a crossword challenge. But this was more or less a lot of pictures and, this is an Adam and the Ants family tree showing all the various members of the band and things. Word search. Nice stand and deliver picture there. So this was another great annual because you had, there was quizzes, there was a lot of biographical information, some great pictures. Great annual. Ah, Star Wars again. This time this is the Return of the Jedi annual. No year, but we have to assume 83. I can see whoever sent me this. This was a clever thing back then. So the price of these books was always on page 3, and it was presented with this sort of corner piece. So if you wish to, you could actually clip the corner so the recipient wouldn't see the price. In this case, it's been scribbled out, but I can just about make out that this was £2.78, which I guess was a reasonable amount of money back then. This one I do remember as being a straight up comic book rendition of the Return of the Jedi story. And as I flick through this, what is interesting is that in the very last scenes of this comic book rendition, Luke does not see the ghosts of the fallen Jedi. Don't know why. Or maybe they thought ghosts would scare kids. Who knows? Ah, Rentaghost. This was a classic 80s TV show for kids. I'm assuming, yep, I was going to say I didn't remember if it was on the BBC or ITV, but it says right here, authorized edition as seen on BBC TV. This was a great sort of comedy show. Oh, this one was £2.50. You know, that's so back in the 80s. I'm trying to think, was that a lot of money, or is it like relative to what something like this would cost today? I don't really remember. But this one, again, a mixture of sort of, you know, comic book type stuff. Let's see, we got a game. Let's see. You probably need some dice to play this game. And do we have any sort of? Oh, we've got a page of home crafts. Let's see, what do they want us to make? It's magic. Well, almost. Vanishing. So it's a bunch of magic tricks you can learn at home, which was always fun as a child. There's a maze. You have to sort of get through this maze. It's pretty good. Some shots from the TV show presented in a classic sort of 80s style television set. That's nice. Yeah, good mixture of things like that. Now, yes, Dandy and Beano. So I already did a video when I was back in the UK showing that the Beano comic is still available. Sadly, the Dandy comic is no longer available in a weekly format, but I have been assured by a viewer that they still do a Dandy annual, which is good. So these were two of my absolute favourites growing up, the Dandy and the Beano. I won't go into this too much because I did the recent video, but yeah, these are just classic cartoon comic characters from my childhood, and whilst they were, you know, two separate comics entirely, I did see when flicking through here there was an advert. Yeah, so this is the Beano. They're advertising a Dennis the Menace 1983 special for £1.65. I don't necessarily remember that. I wonder how much this one was. This annual was £1.80 in 1983. I'm pretty sure a flimsy paper comic these days is a hell of a lot more than £1.80. And here, a nice hardback book. The Dandy, which I mentioned, is no longer available as a weekly comic, unfortunately. This also was £1.80. All the sort of classic comic stuff I used to enjoy as a child. A lot of this humour would not fly in this day and age, certainly. We have... Okay, this is quite amazing, actually. This comic strip is entitled, I think it's The Jocks and the Geordies. I just have to confirm that. But I just saw an image that, yeah, the Jocks and the Geordies. So the Jocks, of course, are the Scotsmen, and the Geordies are the men from northern Newcastle. And holy crap, I have to show you this picture. We have the black chap, complete with a loincloth, big earrings, big eyes, big white lips. We have what appears to be an Eskimo, a Spaniard, of course, with the, good lord, my brain's gone, the bullfighting gear, and what appears to be a Chinaman with big teeth, slitty eyes, holding a couple of lanterns. Good lord. I don't know what the context of all this is, but good lord. So I guess they're meeting their pen pals from different countries, and the African-looking guy, like I said, with the loincloth, the big white lips, the big eyes, they're saying, "This is Bongo from Borneo." So his name is Bongo, and the Geordies are saying, "Let's show Bongo how we deal with the Jocks." And of course, it results in Bongo using his blow dart to shoot one of the Scotsmen in the backside. Of course, the Chinaman is referred to, this is Ching Ping, my Chinese pen pal. He's saying, "Come along, Ching Ping. We're having a great time bashing the Jocks." Oh. Oh, good lord, this is amazing. So, just to skip a few cells along, the Chinaman then goes on to say, and I quote, "Me havi the answer." Good God. And you know what? Back then, it was all taken in good humour. No one got offended by this. I'm actually not offended by it at all. I'm very easygoing as far as these things are concerned. It was all just good fun, and that was a nice look back at 1983. What do I have here? Ah, Metal Mickey. This was a TV show in the UK. This annual is from 1982, so I'm just wondering if this was kind of created upon the popularity of droids like R2-D2 and C-3PO. I do remember watching the TV show. I honestly don't remember this book at all. Again, it's your standard quizzes, photos from the TV show, written word, comic strips. Yeah, again, this was a great way of getting young kids into reading, because you would take something that was popular on TV, put it into written format, give them a few quizzes, a few competitions, bit of comic strip, everything a kid loved. Buck Rogers in the 25th Century, annual 1982. Excuse me. I'm guessing again. It's basically comic strip with quizzes, crosswords, word searches. Yeah, actually, you can't smell this, but I can smell the history in these. It is slightly musky, but it is a good memory though. I don't mind that smell at all. Yeah, Buck Rogers. Now, this was a TV show I'm certain was not on BBC. I think this was an ITV show. Thoroughly enjoyed that show as well. Honestly, I can't remember anything about the TV show. I just know that I enjoyed it, but I can't give you any specifics beyond that. Finally, the one we have here, the A-Team annual. And interesting way they've kind of framed the front cover, where it's, you know, BA is up front and close. Hannibal and Murdoch seem to be part of that image, and yet they have face stuck up here. And I forget the chick's name. Was it Amy? I don't remember, but she's also on the cover. Straight up, I'm seeing one of these games you would play with dice and a counter, which did not come with the book, I hasten to add. Doesn't tell you that. But these did not come with any accessories, trust me. I'm seeing written word with illustrations. I'm seeing what else? Wow, this one is down at the daycare centre. BA spends a lot of his time at the daycare centre in Watts, helping the kids with their projects and steering them clear of trouble. But despite his fearsome appearance, things don't always go his way. So this is... that's kind of stupid. But I'm assuming we're going to get more... Yeah, there's this sort of... There's your comic book format. And, oh, there's some photos, a little bit of bio. I'm assuming it's one for each character. Yep, Murdoch. So they're asking you to sort of draw these aeroplanes as you see them. It was basically a good way of getting kids to read and to sort of challenge their minds a little bit with some of these quizzes and word searches, etc. And of course the reading. Yeah, so we had written word stories with a few illustrations. We have more of the sort of comic book style stories. And of course there's BA. Yeah, wonderful stuff. And also what I thought was very good was that all these different companies they all adhered to the same sort of spec. So all these annuals were always the same size, not necessarily as thick as each other, but the dimensions meant that you could put them on your bookshelf, and it all looked pretty good. It was like a nice collection as a child. And of course, on those rainy days, of which there were many in Scotland, you could just grab one of your annuals and sit down, read, play some puzzles. Wonderful, wonderful time. Now, I don't know if America ever had annuals as a thing for kids. Thankfully, the UK still does, and like I said, I have been informed that these annuals, or some of them, are still available to this day, which is wonderful. It's good to keep these traditions going. So anyway, did you enjoy that? I sure as hell enjoyed looking back at these. My hands are a bit musky and actually quite dusty. But those were some real 80s relics right there. I'm actually going to take some time off camera to look at these in more detail and just enjoy them again. So anyway, please do like, please subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.